You feel it, don't you? That quiet pressure beneath your ribs, the weight you never speak of, the strength you never parade. It sits inside you like a coiled shadow, waiting, listening, measuring the world with an patience that feels almost ancient. Every man carries a spark of it, but only a few ever learn to trust it. Fewer still allow it to grow. The rest drown it under noise, the desperate voices of a world terrified of stillness. But you sense something different inside yourself, a presence that does not need applause, validation, or spectacle, a presence that simply watches. What frightens the modern man is not the roar of another, it's the silence, the unreactive gaze of someone who doesn't need to perform strength, because he has already forged it in the places no one else sees. The old warriors knew this. They didn't shout their capability into the air. They walked lightly, spoke with restraint, and carried a depth that could bend the spirits of those around them. In their presence, even mountains seemed to shift. You look around now and you see the opposite. Men making noise, as if volume could replace conviction. They talk over each other, compete for attention, stretch their identities thin across 1,000 empty declarations. They bustle, they broadcast, they boast. Yet within them, something is hollow. The frantic world has no center, no spine, no anchor. But Musashi moved differently. In a time of blades and blood, he understood the paradox of real strength. It rarely announces itself. It lives behind your ribs, in the quiet that surrounds your decisions, in the calm that replaces the need to prove anything. And here lies the hidden entrance to your path, the journey inward, to the power behind the unsaid, the unseen, the unprovoked. The quiet power that waits to be awakened. There was a reason men trembled when Musashi arrived, and it wasn't the sword in his hand. It was the stillness around him, a kind of silence that didn't belong to ordinary men. He walked into duels not with rage, not with enthusiasm, but with the cold calm of someone who had already accepted death and therefore feared nothing. That unshakable quiet was the real blade he carried. Imagine standing across from a man who doesn't flinch, doesn't blink, doesn't even adjust his stance to reassure himself. A man who breathes like a stone resting in a deep river, every movement measured, every step deliberate, every heartbeat slow and exact. This is not the kind of opponent you shout at or intimidate. This is the opponent who makes your knees remember they were designed to tremble. Quiet dominance is a strange force. It dismantles loud men without ever lifting a hand. It forces them to face the truth they've been running from. Noise comes from doubt, and silence from certainty. Musashi understood this long before he picked up a blade. He realized that the man who reacts reveals himself, but the man who observes becomes impossible to read. Today, the rare man who carries this stillness is just as unsettling. He doesn't argue. He doesn't rush. He doesn't defend every opinion or justify every step. He simply sees, absorbs, and waits. And this alone shakes those who are unsteady, because silence exposes everything they hoped to hide. You've felt this before, the power of restraint. The moment you chose not to respond, not to justify, not to prove. And in that moment, the air grew heavy, because calmness has gravity. It draws the truth out of others. It reveals the trembling inside their voices. There is a point in a warrior's evolution where reacting ends and observing begins. It is here, in this stillness, that quiet becomes terrifying, because the man who cannot be provoked is the one the world cannot control. And that is the first step toward becoming someone others fear without understanding why. Look around you. Observe how loudly the insecure announce themselves. Every platform filled with declarations of strength, confidence, certainty, yet beneath it all lies a frantic desperation to be seen. It is a tragedy of modern men. They speak as if silence might expose the emptiness of their souls. They broadcast their victories, their ideas, their opinions, their every breath, hoping noise will disguise the quiet terror within them. But bravado is a confession. A man who must show strength doesn't possess it. A man who flaunts certainty is begging for reassurance. And a man who speaks loudly is praying you won't hear the cracking in his voice. The world has become a temple of false strength, filtered images, curated personas, overinflated identities. Men stand on digital stages, shouting into the void, unaware that the very need to broadcast their spirit proves they have not yet forged it. Musashi would have found this amusing, not because he was superior, but because he understood something simple. Do not let others see your spirit. He kept his fire tucked behind his ribs, hidden from those who could neither understand nor respect it. His silence was not retreat, it was mastery. Yet today, the modern man exposes everything. He explains his intentions, justifies his desires, reveals his doubts, seeks validation, performs strength instead of cultivating it. And when life finally tests him, not online, but in the silent rooms where no one is watching, he collapses. Because noise cannot replace endurance. Appearances cannot replace depth. And the loudest man in the room is often the first to break when the lights go out. Somewhere within you, you feel the discomfort of these truths, because you know you've made the same mistakes. You've spoken when silence was stronger. You've shown when restraint was wiser. You've reached outward when you should have returned inward. But this discomfort is not punishment. It is an invitation, a crack forming in the shell of the man you must shed. Quiet strength is not born from gifts or fortune. It is carved in the private hours no one celebrates. The world sees a calm, unshakable man and imagines he was sculpted whole, but they never see the rituals that forged him. They do not see the mornings when he rose before dawn to face the weight of his own mind. They do not see the nights when he chose discipline over ease, solitude over distraction, repetition over novelty. True power grows in silence long before it is witnessed. There is a discipline in holding tension without letting it crack your bones. The world teaches you to react instantly, to speak quickly, to make noise when you feel pressure. But the warrior who practices stillness learns another path, the path of containment. He lets pressure accumulate like water behind a dam, quiet and immovable. The deeper his inner reservoir grows, the calmer his surface becomes. Picture a still pond. At first glance it seems serene, harmless, even fragile. Yet the deeper the water, the darker and more mysterious it becomes. A single pebble disturbs only the shallow pools, but the deep lake swallows it without a ripple. This is the metaphor of inner discipline. Your surface remains calm, because your depths are vast. Your daily practices become the architecture of this power. Solitude sharpens perception. Restraint strengthens will. Repetition builds mastery. And when no one is watching, your character is forged in the quiet. The undisciplined fear this kind of man because they cannot read him. They see only the calm surface while missing the storms he conquered beneath it. Controlled energy is a terrifying force, not because it's violent, but because it is precise. The man who walks with quiet discipline unnerves those who live in chaos, because his very presence reminds them of everything they failed to master within themselves. And as you hear these words, something inside you stirs, a recognition that your own discipline must be rebuilt, not through loud declarations, but through invisible rituals. The world never needs to know what you conquer, but you must know, and that knowledge alone changes everything. Musashi often defeated opponents before either sword was drawn, not through intimidation, not through force, but through perception. He read men like unfinished stories, seeing the tremors in their breath, the fractures in their posture, the hesitations hidden in their gaze. By the time the first strike was made, he already knew the ending. This was not magic. It was patience sharpened into instinct. Today's man has lost this ability. He assumes before observing, reacts before understanding, and charges forward without ever noticing the terrain beneath his own feet. His mind is cluttered with assumptions, impulses, and noise, so he cannot see the truth unfolding in front of him. He speaks too quickly, reveals too much, and listens too little, and in doing so, he blinds himself. Saying less is not silence. It is precision. It is the refusal to waste energy. It is the discipline of choosing understanding over announcement. When you speak less, your perception sharpens. Your mind begins to gather fragments. Others overlook the hesitation in their voice, the insecurity behind their anger, the longing buried beneath their confidence. And slowly, without forcing it, you begin to see what others cannot. Think of the hunter in the tall grass. He does not thrash about. He does not shout into the forest. He waits. He studies. He lets the world reveal itself to him. His power does not come from aggression, but from patience, the kind of patience that unnerves even the fiercest predators. This is the quiet man's secret. He walks into every room with eyes that pierce deeper than his voice reaches. People sense it. They feel seen in ways they cannot explain. And in that moment, something inside them flinches, because the cue. Solitude is the furnace in which a man either breaks or becomes unbreakable. Musashi wandered alone for years, not as a hermit escaping the world, but as a warrior refining himself without distraction. He understood that isolation is not emptiness, it is concentration. In solitude, you meet the parts of yourself that vanish in the presence of others. You confront the voices you've been avoiding. You sharpen identity until it gleams. The world fears this kind of man, the one who does not beg for companionship, validation, or noise. Because a man who needs nothing cannot be controlled. He becomes unpredictable, untouchable, sovereign. His solitude is not a wound, it is a weapon. There is a difference between lonely desperation and chosen isolation. One comes from lack, the other from abundance. Modern men confuse the two because they cannot imagine standing alone without shattering. They need constant affirmation to steady their trembling sense of self. But you have felt moments rare, fleeting, where being alone awakened something fierce inside you, a kind of inner solidity that only emerges when no one else is watching. Quiet independence disturbs people. They cannot understand why your approval is not for sale, why your peace does not depend on them, why your presence feels complete rather than hungry. They expect you to reach outward, but you keep returning inward. And that unsettles them, because it breaks the unspoken agreement of dependency the world relies on to become a mountain. You must be willing to stand alone in the wind, still, unmoved, unwound by anyone. The world may try to pull at your edges, chip away at your resolve, or lure you into its noise, but you will remain rooted in yourself. Walking alone is not a tragedy, it is a rebirth. And somewhere deep within you, the first stones of that mountain are beginning to rise. There is a presence some men carry that cannot be taught, sold, or performed. It is the silent weight of a man who has walked through his own storms and returned with eyes that hold the memory of thunder. This aura does not shine, it presses. It does not ask for respect. It commands it quietly, effortlessly, without a single word spoken. People feel it before they understand it. A subtle shift in the air, a heaviness in the space, a sense that someone has entered who is not here to participate in noise, but to weigh everything in silence. The world instinctively recognizes him, not because he demands attention, but because he has mastered himself. Musashi carried this energy like a shadow stitched to his spine. Even outside the battlefield, men paused in his presence. They sensed the unseen battles he had fought. They felt the discipline in his breath, the restraint in his gaze, the quiet certainty